I think I shall build a
Hello,
spaceship
this is
and
the
explore
plain
Mars.
sailing
Jolly good. Have a nice
trophy
voyage.
guide. Essentially getting a perfect run on your 39 days trip to Mars.
Today
This is
we
39
depart.
days to
We
Mars.
need nothing except our courage.
And I am playing this
And perhaps
with
some
one
luck.
controller by myself, but this game can be played as a
After the flight
two-person
plan
local
got
co-op
shredded
game.
by Percival, I
And
put the
some
pieces
of
in the
the
commode for safety.
activities you need to do in the game can work a little bit quicker and a little bit easier if you have a second person playing with you, but everything can be done quite easily by yourself. Even the 30-minute speed run can be accomplished with one person. So if you don't have the option of playing with a local co-op partner, this game can still be completed and platinumed by yourself. It's a little bit of a fun adventure to do so. But this video right here is showing you how to get through without failing any of the puzzles and landing on Mars in one piece and getting the plain sailing trophy. First thing we're doing here is we're putting together the map, and the map is always the same. It always looks the same, and it always has the same pieces, and they always go in the same places. The map is, for the most part, impossible to fail, as in to say the wrong thing, but I do find that if you connect pieces on the outer edges and then try to put some of the middle pieces in after everything else is connected, sometimes those pieces just won't click in and they won't fit. So I suggest starting from one corner and working your way out, putting everything in before it is kind of locked out of being put into the little map puzzle.
We can sort out
Once
the
you get
details
used to
on the
doing
way.
that, you're not going to really have any problems.
I store my hats
The
in
hat
tea chest
chest,
so that they smell nice when out.
puzzle is, you can give up on it and probably fail it that way, but other than that, you simply either you get it and you get the hat, or you don't, and you can't leave the house until you already have the hat. So you can just do it correctly. All you have to do with this puzzle every single time you do it is use the dials in order to get the black line to match with the cross line where the key hole is located, and you just lock in the knobs that move it to the desired area, and you don't even have to lock the final knob. If you can get
It's
one
my
of your
favorite top
cursors
hat.
to open up that little latch there, you don't even have to worry about locking
It's
the
a
last
fishing
one.
rod. It's just long enough to stir up.
This is the typical run that I do just to save a little bit of
I
time.
hang the key out of reach so the
I
thieves can't steal.
Get the map, and then I go up and get the hat, and then I come back down and get the fishing pole to get the key. Otherwise, you have to, if you get the fishing pole first, you go up, you get the key. You can't leave the house to turn on the power to do the next step that we'll look at until you already have his hat. So I like to grab the hat first. And just as with the map puzzle, dropping the key touching any of the white objects and falling from the hook does not fail this puzzle for you. It's practically impossible to go from one corner of the puzzle, I guess you could say, to the top left there where you need to drop the key without hitting something. It's I mean, if you can do it without without hitting a single thing. More power to you. But
It's an
it does
ornate
not
key
fail
made out of
anything
cast iron.
if the key touches anything that you pass by and falls out of the hook. As soon as that's done, you go outside, turn the power on, and then we're going to use the password
It's a volatile
locator, the
helioscopic
volatile
password
helioscopic password generator. There is a trophy for getting through the gate that we're now going to get a password for without completing this puzzle. But of course you want to get this puzzle done before you leave the house, because without getting it done you wouldn't have a perfect run. So you want to get this done properly on this one. That long piece at the very top right now you can't really reach it. It's outside of the area where you can reach, so just adjust the hinge, yeah, right there. Adjust that so that you can dip it down far enough to put it in. And then there's your 4 symbols. A backwards D kind of looks like 2 8s, and then another backwards D.
Maybe I should have written them down.
If you were to go for the trophy called Skeleton Key, which you get for opening this gate here without completing the volatile helioscopic password generator, you would simply do that puzzle until you get 3 of the password symbols, and if you can exit, then you'd have to exit out of it and then come to this gate and put in the first 3 and then just keep guessing the final one in order to get the Skeleton Key trophy. And I will have a guide up for that one separately from this run, because doing so would, I would think, would be a failure, and you don't want to do that during your plain sailing run. So we're heading up to the boat, or the ship, or the dirigible, or blimp. I'm not entirely sure what this vehicle would be called.
Up there is our spaceship, the HMS Fearful. Pieces are falling off of it as we speak.
As I mentioned before, this is a single player run, and so your assistant is your cat. In the co-op mode, it is another English gentleman who will help you get through the things you need to do. But for now, it's just us with our top hat and our trusty kitty cat. Keep in mind, every time you play this game, the rooms are totally randomized where they fall on the ship. Everything in the house where you start is always in the same places, but as soon as you get on the ship, everything is randomized, and the order of which tasks are going to come up is randomized, and whether or not you're going to need to make a cup of tea or a scone is also randomized. So once you get into the swing of it, it is about 9 or 10 tasks, a section where you have to collect a bunch of loose baby krakens, and then finally the final kraken fight and the voyage down to Mars. So the first thing we do once we get on the ship, I think it was the boiler room that exploded. And of course, in this game, between every task, your character is going to say either he wants a cup of tea before he fixes the problem, or a scone. And up on the left, top left there, that's the recipe for what you need to make. A whole scone would be both pieces of the scone, bread, type thing. Butter is on the far left, jam is next to it, 2 strawberries, red currants, and then the clotted cream is in the bowl there. Fairly simple without needing to put any of the kind of
the perfect scone.
liquid like stuff in there with the butter, the jam, the creams, and the strawberries are a little weird as far as physics are concerned, trying to get them to stay still, especially if you need to put them on the whole scone, because the top of the scone kind of creates a slight little ramp. So you'll get the hang of doing those. I sped this part up. This is the boiler puzzle, and it's fairly simple to do each time you do it. Basically, you connect each cable to that little piece that we're connected to there with the two connections and the question mark, and then you use the other end to go to every other connection to see which one works. If it's the correct one, you'll get a check mark. If it's not, you will get an X. And then so what you want to do is you want to find both working connections for each cable using that item. The good news is that you can't screw this up unless you quit out of the exercise. If you accidentally connect it to a if you connect the cable to a connection it's not supposed to be connected to, it doesn't blow up, it doesn't fail the puzzle. It's fairly simple. Just take your time, use that indicator. Sometimes some of the cables are so short that you can't actually use the indicator to figure out the pair of connections you need for that. So just keep that in mind. And if you can't figure out what the connections are, just simply plug it into two open ones and stretch out the cable. Make sure it's not crossing any other paths. And if it works, then you found the connection. If it doesn't, then attach it to another two connections. You know, the good thing is this isn't a speed run, so you don't need to rush through that. And here we are making our first cup of tea. Making tea is so much easier than making scones. Basically, you pour the hot salty water. You use 1 sugar cube to make it regular water. You put the tea bag in. Then you have hot tea or warm tea or cool tea. And then if you need to make it milky, you simply put some milk in. It's a very easy sequence of events to handle that. I would suggest never using the ice on the far right of the tea. That way you won't turn the water to sugary, and you should be able to get through those without any problems. There are many opportunities to practice making tea, and there is of course a trophy for making 39 bad cups of tea, which we will look at in the other trophy run for failing everything. This puzzle here can be a little tricky. Basically, the machine on the bottom right will shoot out joint pieces, and it will pretty much only give you probably about 7 or 8 joint pieces at a time. If you're not using pieces, it'll basically wait for you to pick a few up and use them. And if you are finding that you are simply not finding good connections, you need to keep moving and you need to be connecting these pieces. Whether or not you end up making routes that are never going to be useful, just keep connecting them and keep trying to get them close to each other, because if you can see on the left side, that is the water tank, and when that reaches the bottom, you fail the mission if you can't get this connection from one end to the other fully connected, and that would blow your chances at getting the plain sailing trophy. And there, that is complete. But that can go, that can kind of go bad on you if you're not too careful, and if you have a little bit of bad luck. There's a little bit of RNG in some of these puzzles, but never to the point where it's frustrating or impossible to overcome. So here we have the plant puzzle, and this is the one thing that I kind of struggled with. There are 2 tasks that you need to complete that cannot be completed unless you research in the library, which is the bookcase that is always on board the ship. Here we are making another scone, half a spot of butter, no jam, no strawberries, all 9 red currants, or maybe there's 10 of them, and the lashings of clotted cream, which means, of course, all of the cream. If a little falls off, it still considers it a lashing, so that's fine. But anyway, while we watch this scone being made, let me explain what needs to happen. So there is a bookcase on the ship, and that is basically your library, and there is a number of pieces of there's a number of pages that are going to be very important for you to see and to kind of commit to memory or take a picture of with your phone. And in the library there are pictures of every kind of plant that will be in your garden, every rule set that you're going to have to know of in order to take care of the plants, and also all of the Morse Code keys, all the dots and dashes that you need to spell out your Morse Code task. So what I was worried about when I was going for this perfect run was the game does not allow you to go to the library and do your research before starting one of those tasks. It always just tells you it's a library, good job, you found it,
Perfect scone.
now go somewhere else. So what I was worried about was starting one of these
The
tasks,
ship's garden
going
has taken
into
over
it,
this room,
and
and every other part of the ship.
literally impossible to figure out all on your own through trial and error. I tried with Morse Code, I tried with this one, just getting rid of plants and seeing what would happen. But as you can see on the bottom right, there are 3
We can't
kind of
just cut
rules that
things
you need to know
haphazardly.
of. So
I've
here,
got a gardening book
so
on
it gave me the
board
option to do the research at the library, and the game treats it, when you say yes, I want to go to the library and do the research, the game treats it like a failure. I mean, at least it makes that noise, and the comment that your character makes it sound like you fail a mission. But the good news is you're not failing it. I find, and I've done this a couple times, I have found that going into either the garden task or the Morse Code task, whichever one comes up first for you, and then selecting the chance to go to the library will give you this opportunity to do this research, and it will not fail the plain sailing trophy for you. So here what I'm doing is I'm in the library, and I'm gathering everything that I'm going to need for both puzzles into a neat and orderly fashion, and then I'm going to take a picture of it with my phone when I'm completed. So what I like to do is I like to set up all of the pictures and names of the plants on the top, and then maybe in the bottom right corner if I need the room. I like to put the Morse Code in the middle, and I like to put the rules on the bottom left. Now, as you saw in the plant puzzle or the plant task, there were 3 rules that we had to follow. I think each of these library sequences, they give you 4 or 5 different rules, but since I already knew and I saw the names of all 3 of the rules, I already knew which ones to look for. But I am going to set out the other 2 just in case, just to show you an example. There's also, I would say, probably about 4 or 5 pages that you don't need to worry about. They're like the English garden cover page, which you can see there on the bottom there. There's a bunch of pages about monocles, which do not come into play for anything. And there are probably 1 or 2 other pages, some Morse Code pages that you're not going to need, some pictures of plants that, I mean, My guess is, I assume everyone knows what holly looks like, and I know what gooseberries look like. They look very different than anything else in here, but you definitely want to make sure that you have like things like the violet and hawthorn leaf, privet leaf, the lilac leaf, the rose, the buttercup leaf, and the peony. You want to be able to tell which one is which. So, and with the Morse code, we'll go back to it in a little bit and talk about it later once we do that task. But I know the words I need for the Morse code. It's voyage, progressing well, and no sign of the giant space monster yet. So I'm making sure that all of those codes are visible in this, and then that I can see every page of the plant classifications that are necessary. And I'm just going through, and any errant pages I'm seeing tiny little corners of, I'm just double checking that they aren't anything that I need to see that I happen to miss. So I know what Morse code I need. I know, luckily, and this might not happen for you, the Morse code you need might be at the bottom of each page, but I know that I can see everything I need. So I'm using the bottom row to overlay the Morse code row, because I don't need to see the bottom of the Morse code pages. And so here I'm showing you what everything looks like once you get it all set up. And I took a picture with my cell phone, and I have that kind of next to me for what I need. So in the plant rules, I have this sped up because I'll explain why in a moment. But the 3 rules were: Rule 2, there can only be 1 rose. Regulation F, I believe, said that there can't be any, not hawthorn leaves, but some other kind of leaf. So we had to get rid of that. And then I'm sorry, I have that backwards. That was the precept 14 or whatever that is. And then Regulation F said that the gooseberries and the roses had to be the equal number. So what you do is you take this tool here, and with one hand you hold it, and the other hand you operate the actual piece that cuts it, and you want to cut away any of the plants that you need to get rid of. The good news is that if you accidentally cut off too much, if you cut a branch like here, we have a violet, the violets is what we needed to have the same number as the gooseberries. So there I had to get rid of the leaves that were on that plant, but I had to save whatever violets I could so that you had this equal amount. But for that, if you accidentally cut off too much, just simply grab the watering can, water the plant, and everything that was there when you started the puzzle will grow back. You won't fail the puzzle. It'll all work out for you. So make sure that you go into both of those, do the research, take the picture, know what you need, and then operate that very frustrating gardening tool that removes the leaves and the stems and the plants for you. But I did, as I said, I did speed that up because I really struggled to get rid of some of those leaves that we had to get rid of in the middle plant without removing all of the violets, because I wanted a few of them to be still on the screen. Hopefully you'll have better luck than I did for that. So another scone here. With this game, it's very random whether or not you're going to have to make tea in between the tasks or scones. Hopefully you're lucky enough that it's just tea, because tea is so much easier to make. Scones are very frustrating, and the physics of the knife and the bowl and the jar and every one of the creams, jams, butters, all that kind of stuff, that they don't work very well, and they're very frustrating to deal with. But we have our cup of tea, Of course, you always want to make a perfect
Promised
cup
to
of
send
tea
a
and a perfect
telegraph to the
scone
Royal Society
during this
of
run.
Chartered
You don't want to
Explorers.
mess that up
Unfortunately,
even
I
once.
don't know telegraph code.
And here we are doing the Morse code, which, luckily enough, we're killing two birds with one stone. We did the research, and we already know, thanks to the picture that we took with our phone, what we need to do. I'm going to quickly arrange the words here for you, just so you're familiar with exactly what you need to look for. But as I said, it's voyage progressing well, and no sign of giant space monster yet. And while I'm setting that up for you, I'll explain. So on the left-hand side, there are two buttons. The far left button is the dot, as the sign indicates, and the button that's closer to the middle is the dash. We don't need to go to the library books because we've already done the research when we went for the plants. And so what you want to put in is the correct Morse code for each phrase. So I put in voyage first and I wait, and then voyage comes out on the screen. And then next I will put progressing well Morse code. I don't know why I'm waiting here. So there, it's progressing well. And every game, the Morse code sequences will be different. It's completely randomized. It would be nice if it was the same Morse code every time, and then you could just learn your dots and dashes and memorize them, and then do this in 20 seconds flat every single time. But unfortunately, that's not the case. The only way you can fail this is if you quit out. I will demonstrate right here. I got it wrong. I hit the X button twice, and it removes the last Morse code phrase, and I just put it right back in the correct way, and it will appear on the page.
If only there was
and
a
then
library book where I
hit the
could learn
done.
how to use
Be
this
very
telegraph.
careful here that you don't hit the yes to go back to the library, because it's right next to the done button,
sure
and you
that
don't
will
want
set
to
my mind at
accidentally
ease.
void out the fact that you did that correctly. So as with every task, we're just waiting for the next problem to arise. We're going to go to it, and then our character is going to say he either wants tea or scone before he goes through with it. Actually, no, I'm
We
incorrect,
left the
I
fishing
believe.
rod in the house,
With this task,
so we'll need something
this
else
is
to
the
hook
fishing
fish with.
task. So what you always will have to do is
It's a
find
whole
the
bundle
bundle
of
of
walking sticks.
walking
He
sticks
predominantly uses them to stab.
and bring them back to
Our
the
food
little
supply has been
diving
destroyed.
bell
We
kind
need
of
to
pod
reprovision
here,
somehow.
and then that will start the fishing task, where we have to follow this space
The Royal
jellyfish
Society of
out
Explorers
and
had a
find
leaky
his
diving
3
bell
friends so that
borrowed
we
for this
can
voyage.
scoop them up and I guess eat them for food. I don't know.
If we follow that fish,
I've
it
never.
should lead us to
I
a
don't
whole
think you can
school
eat
of them.
real jellyfish, and I certainly wouldn't want to eat space jellyfish. This is one of the few rare tasks that it's impossible to fail at. If you aren't really having success hooking the 3 jellyfish you need to catch at the end of this task, it's not going to fail anything for you. It'll just take you longer to get back to the ship until you have all 3 jellyfish that you need. What you're doing is you're following
If we follow
this
that
guy,
fish, it should
and
lead us to a whole
the speech
school of
bubbles
them.
get in the way, which is always frustrating.
By my calculations,
Also, the way that
3
it's
fish should be
operating
enough
is
food to
holding
sustain
both
us for the
triggers
rest of the voyage.
sends you forward, and then operating
down,
only one trigger
only 2
turns you
more
either
fish
to the
to
left or
catch.
to the right. Same thing with setting
One
out the
more
hook.
fish and we'll have enough
Hitting
food
both
to
triggers
last
will
until
send
Mars.
the hook out and then back in. And then you can always rotate the diving bell
That looks like a reasonable
in order to
haul.
catch
Now we can head back to the ship.
anything that you think you might be able to catch if you are in a different direction. And then simply holding both triggers pulls you back once you have all three. Very simple task, and the more you get used to doing this task, the easier you'll find it is to send the hook out and catch them, and
With
to
all of
operate
these
the
fish,
diving
our
bell.
hunger will be well sated.
And that task is complete. As I said, as far as I can tell, that's impossible to fail. So you don't have to worry too much about that.
It's almost time for afternoon tea.
And we have to get some afternoon tea, and then once the tea is done, this next task is one of the trickier tasks that you're gonna have to just take your time with a little bit and make sure you don't mess up, because getting this task late in the game could end up ruining your plain sailing run. As we said before, cool, sweet, milky. You just put in one sugar to make it no longer salty, put in a second sugar to make it sweet, put in the milk to make it milky, and then wait until it goes from scalding to hot to warm to cool, and then drink it. Never put the ice cubes in that are on the far right. I'm not sure if I said that already, and I apologize if I did, because the ice cubes totally change the flavor of the tea, and you'll never have a good cup of tea if you put ice cubes in it. So with this puzzle, the plug at the top will tell you the correct symbol of each of the outlets. So you want to plug these two-sided plugs into the correct outlets. Find both ends, plug them into both outlets that have the same symbol. What I have done in the past is, if you just outright plug them into symbols that do not match, you will fail. If you are in the process of lifting one of the plugs and you get too close to any of the outlets, whether or not you intend to plug it in there, if you get this plug too close to one of the outlets, it will automatically plug it into it. So be very careful and try to move the long plug extensions only in the middle, and then slowly move towards the outlet that you need to get. And also try to remember which symbol is which, where you're going. You can certainly always put the plug down and check it again with the plug from the top. But failing at this has ruined 2 of my plain sailing runs in the past before I did this one correctly. So I just wanted to give you that word of warning, just to be careful. And then by the end of it, it's just process of elimination. As you see on the right side there, I almost, if that outlet would have been open, I would have failed that right there, because that plug would have gone in the wrong place, because I got way too close to it. Here I am expecting to do the baby Kraken collection, but I am 1 task, maybe even 2 tasks, too early for that. It's always in between the 8th and 9th task. Here's another one that's a little bit trickier and can fail rather easy for you if you're not used to doing it. We'll take a look at it in just a second here, but first we are going to make another cup of tea. Okay, so this is simple stuff that we've already talked through. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get on our bicycle, and I meant to look up what it's called when the bicycle has a giant big wheel in the front and then little wheels in the bottom. I know there's a special term for it, but since I didn't do that research, that will unfortunately not be in this video, so I apologize. Oh, watch for that too. You don't want the milk spilling accidentally into your tea if it's not supposed to be milky. But so anyway, we're gonna get in our vehicle here, and we're going to take the bicycle out into space. On the bicycle is going to be a long arm which we can extend and break apart the, I guess, meteors, space rocks, whatever. So once you get the hang of this, it's fairly simple. Essentially, you're going to head out. You have an oxygen tank that trails behind you. You're going to break 2 rocks, and in the second rock there's going to be a black piece, and that's your coal that you need to collect. You're going to bring that back to the ship. There's going to be a nice lit area where you need to deposit the coal. See, here's our second rock that we opened, and there's the piece. And then we need to head back. One trigger operates the arm. I think it's the left trigger operates the arm holding the coal, and the right trigger operates you moving forward. And when you're not pressing forward, you can change the direction of the bike. So that was 2 rocks broken, and you get your first piece of coal. Then the next third rock that you break will be your second piece of coal. So what I suggest, if you want to get this perfect, you scope out 4 pieces of rock that are closest to the ship, and you leave them alone. And then you go out and you break 2 pieces of rock, and you come back, deposit those, move to 3 pieces of rock, grab the coal and deposit it, and then go to 4 pieces of rock that are fairly close to the ship and are easy to get to, and then grab your last piece of coal. Here's our third piece of rock we're going to break, and then the one right there is going to be our last piece of coal that we need, and then we're going to head back. The reason I say all of that is because if you don't know exactly where you need to go, and if you don't have it scoped out, you could easily get lost in space. As you can see, as the oxygen gets close to running out, it gets darker and darker, and if you don't return to the ship with all 3 pieces of coal, if you run out of oxygen at any point during that task, you will fail the task and you will not be able to get the plain sailing trophy. Here I am standing here because I know that the next thing that's going to happen is this Kraken sequence, this baby Kraken sequence. To the left of the Kraken tank, I guess it is the butterfly net, and we grabbed that, and now we're trying to grab all of the little baby Krakens. I don't know exactly how many there are. I probably should have counted it before I made the video. Probably would have been helpful. Maybe we can count it together. That's 1. Basically, these Krakens will fly around. You catch them with the butterfly net. They will make kind of inky mess all over the ship. And there are 2 separate trophies pertaining to that inky mess. That's number 2. Also, look out for the cat if you're playing single player. Very often, I think I'm trying to catch one of the Krakens, and it's just the cat in my way. That's number 3. So you're just grabbing each one, and then you're returning them and putting them into the tank and moving back. Some of these Krakens have kind of certain flight paths that you can kind of determine where they're going to be. I think that was 5. I've already lost count because I'm talking. And that's number 6, perhaps. It's either 5 or 6. There's 7.
Baby space Kraken.
And some of these I'm catching a second and third time. I think we're at number 7. So it looks like possibly 9, somewhere between, I'd say, 8 and 10 of these little things. But once you catch the last one, you'll know. This is also another one that you can't fail, but I would suggest that once you have caught them all, I would suggest cleaning up. As I said, there are 2 separate trophies after this task pertaining to cleaning up. So to the left, you can see the exclamation mark there. There is a spray bottle. It seems to me like automatically your character will grab the spray bottle, whether or not you go to that exclamation mark, whether or not you want to grab the spray bottle. If you press the trigger button, it will spray water out and it will start cleaning. I have yet to accomplish the trophy for completing that task and not cleaning up, because I always somehow have the water can in my hand and press a button and then I started cleaning. But what I would suggest is that you do clean every single ink splot and splatter around the ship. Make sure you get it all. Therefore, that way you won't fail any part of these tasks. So I'm just going to go around and make sure that everything's cleaned up, and make sure you get rid of any little black area that was put there by the Krakens. Maybe do an extra run through just to make sure you don't see any specks of black ink anywhere else on the ship. Once you're done, return to the Kraken tank. In the exclamation point there, you put the spray bottle down, you go to the tank,
specimen tank is full of baby
and
space Kraken.
you observe it, and now you know that the task is complete. With that done, that means we have one more task that we need to finish before we attempt to fight the Kraken. And that last attempt
after I've had a cuppa.
is I'm not entirely sure what to call this one. It has a lot of buttons and knobs. It's getting the symbols lined up. We'll take a look at it in a second. It is there's two things about it that could cause failure for the perfect run. If you take too long, there is a cinder block on the left of the screen that is going to slowly drop, and if the cinder block gets to the bottom of the left side of the screen, you will fail the mission. You'll fail the task. So don't let that happen. Essentially, as you'll see in just a second here, you're going to start out with a kind of button or crank or some kind of mechanism you can use on the top and bottom, kind of like the center here. The bottom is a button that you press, and the top is a dial. But it's always going to be randomized what you get. And then once you get the first symbol of 4, you get 4 different mechanisms that may or may not be what you need to use for that particular symbol. And as you can see, some of it is just staying focused and finding which mechanism works. And then also, once you get the right mechanisms to work, you have to make sure that you're operating them the proper way. As you see, the top right one is always giving me trouble. That one you press, and you just have to keep kind of pressing it to make sure that it works. So luckily we found the second symbol. Every time you get the correct symbol lined up on both of these kind of code things, the cinder block will reset to the top on the left, and you just have to find out which dial or mechanism is the one that you need, and then you need to make sure that both sets of the kind of code sequence thing here is showing the correct code at the same time.
The controls are back under control.
But, again, keep an eye on that cinder block for that one, and just stay focused and make sure you locate the proper dials and mechanisms to make that puzzle work for you. It's also one of the worst ones to have at the very end, just because the rate of failure on that one's a little higher than some of the other ones. And lastly, we have the Kraken that we're going to fight here. Kraken fight is fairly simple. Basically, you're going to grab 2 things off of this coat rack here. You're going to grab an umbrella, and you're going to grab a long piece of rope. Once you have both items, You use the umbrella to either shield from the Kraken's ink attack, or you use the umbrella to hit the Kraken's arms, tentacles, whatever you want to call them. You can move with the left trigger. You will pull back and you'll move back to the right. When with the R2 trigger, you will either swipe your umbrella or you will guard. If you hold it down, he'll open the umbrella and guard, use it as a shield. And if you tap R2, you will attack the tentacles. So all you have to be mindful of is you can move up and down. I find that moving up and down makes it a little bit more chaotic and harder to move in on his tentacles easily. So I would suggest on your first attempt, maybe just use the L2 trigger to move in and out for your attacks. And then if you're not attacking him, make sure the umbrella is open. It does take a second or two to open the umbrella up. So if he's already shooting his ink attack at you and you are too close, you might get hit with the ink. You can get hit a total of, I believe it's 3 times before you fail the boss fight. There is a separate trophy for failing the boss fight and letting the Kraken eat you, but we certainly do not want to do this for this perfect run. Keep swatting at the tentacles until they all turn black and disappear. Keep using the umbrella to shield yourself from the ink attack. As you can see there, I tried to open up the umbrella and I did get hit. And what it does is it just kind of forms a black border around the fight. And I got hit there twice. So now I'm starting to panic. And then finally, we're going to get rid of the last tentacle and we are going to finish the fight. It does take a little long. There is there's 2 speedrun trophies in this game as well, which work probably better in co-op than by playing by yourself, but I was able to get the whole game done in about 33 minutes. Unfortunately, the speedrun trophy is for completing the game under 30 minutes, but what cost me the most amount of time was this fight here. As I said before, if you don't move the right stick up and down and kind of go all kind of crazy up and down with your attacks and your counters and so forth. If you just stay in the straight line and just use L2 to move left and right in the fight, then you may have more success and you might get that done quicker. But we did beat the Kraken there, and we are ready to get in our pod and head down to Mars. All of our tasks are complete. The ship is in good working order. We've made plenty of good scones and good teas. So you can just head down to the escape pod, to the little spaceship. I forget what they call it. Let's see what he says about it in just a second
We
here.
made it. Safe and sound.
Safe and sound, currently floating 196 miles above the Martian surface. All we need now is a way down.
All we need now is a
So
way
they're going
down.
to use this little, what looks kind of like a coffin.
It's time to venture forth and explore
Venture forth
Mars.
and explore Mars. So the last thing you need to do is land safely on Mars. So this vehicle here, if you hold both triggers, it will shoot out air and it will slow you down and pad your your way down. So basically what you want to do is use I think it's the right stick to point the gas, the burst of air, into the right direction, and then use both triggers to burst the air so that you can hopefully avoid hitting any of the rocks. But if you are coming close to any of the rocks, as you can see, I've already hit a rock once. Just try to use the air to cushion the blow as much as possible, and be very patient and careful with this, because it is very easy to hit these asteroids and these rocks and so forth 3 times, and then after 3 times, the 4th hit will make your little spaceship here explode, and you do not want that for a perfect run. This is going to take a little longer to get down to Mars, because we're going to be very careful. As you can see, we started at 169 miles, or no, I'm sorry, 196 miles, and we've only gotten through about well, 70 miles. That's not too bad. As I said, use the right stick to kind of point the ship in one of 2 directions, and use the cushion of air by holding both triggers to either propel yourself into a safe area to drop, or to just soften the blow for any asteroids that you're about to come down onto. The first 3 or 4 runs that I did, I thought I had it down pat, and I would just slowly come down, and I found if you are already hitting rocks 3 times, by the time you hit the surface of Mars, the rocket, doesn't matter how slow you go, the rocket literally crashes and burns the second you hit the surface. So try to avoid, during this perfect run, try to avoid hitting more than 2 of the rocks, because hitting 3 rocks and then landing on Mars might end up in a bad way for you. We're 53 miles away from the surface. We should be getting there fairly soon. You are going to see the Sojourner Trophy pop here, because this was my first successful landing on Mars after playing this game about 4 or 5 different times. I would definitely suggest playing the game a few times and getting to a point where you're confident that you can do this section without failing, because you certainly don't want to spend an hour doing a perfect run and then mess it all up once you get to this section trying to land on Mars for the first time. 18 miles away, so we will be arriving at the surface very soon. Take notice of what this craft does when we get very close to the surface. It kind of suddenly bottoms up here. Suddenly wants to go on its side, which would cause another crash. Okay, and we've landed, and that is it. That's all we really need to do. There's one more task. There's 2 more things we need to collect on Mars surface, and then one more thing we need to do. But part of the humor of the game is that while he has put himself in a spacecraft to land on Mars, he also put himself in a spacecraft that only opens from the outside. There's the Sojourner Trophy for landing safely on Mars. And he does eventually get the craft open. Head to the right and pick up this rolled up mat here. And then come to this area here where there's enough room to lay the mat out. And then go to the left of the spacecraft and find the little pot, the little teapot. go back to the mat that you put on the ground, and we will do our final perfect tea task for this run. Warm and sweet, put in 2 sugar cubes and the tea bag, and just wait until it goes from hot to warm, and then drink it up.
I've been looking forward to this cup of tea for 39 days. It was worth the wait.
And that's your plain sailing trophy. I hope this helped. Thanks for watching. Take care.